ever see. No other soldier knows her, no soldier, only me. She cried so when I left her, it like to broke my heart. And if I ever find her, we never more will part. She's the sweetest rose of color this soldier ever knew. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, they sparkle like the dew. You may talk about your dearest May and sang of Rosalie, but the yellow rose of Texas beats the bells of Tennessee.
On the night of July 1st, Robert Lee says, if the Union Army is there tomorrow, we will fight him here. General Longstreet disagreed, saying that if the Union's army is there, they want to be there and they want us to attack because they have the high ground. We have Culp's Hill, we have Little Round Top, and Cemetery Ridge connecting them. The Union has the high ground. Now, this formation, shaped like a fishhook, is perfect, especially if breaks in the line happen, because it's easy to move regiments to fill any gaps along the line back and forth. So this is a pretty awesome defensive position the Union has set up. Robert E. Lee is going to attack it anyway. He's going to attack at Culp's Hill with Ewell's troops and try to take the high ground at Culp's Hill, and he's also going to try to outflank the Union left with General Longstreet. And outflanking the Union left means to get to the edge of the Union line, take the high ground at Little Round Top, and then roll up the Union Army, sealing victory for Robert E. Lee. That is his plan for day 2. So we're going to head to the battlefield and we're going to join along with the 1st Texas Infantry. And we're going to try to outflank the Union, take Little Round Top. It's day 2 of the battle. About 4 p.m. on July 2nd, 1863. We're standing with the 1st Texas under Longstreet's Corps, Hood's division. If you see the hill to the right, that's Big Round Top. And to the left, where you see the rocky hill, that's going to be Little Round Top. Now, part of the attack plan is the 3-pronged attack to attack the center, the right and left flank of the Union. Now, with the 1st Brigade, their advance is going to go through these open fields, through these trees, up to the rocks that are going to be called Devil's Den, and then to take the high ground at Little Round Top. As of now, early on July 2nd, 1863, the Confederates feel like Little Round Top is exposed and it's not occupied by the Union forces. So their objective is to take that high ground to try to counter their loss of gaining ground on day 1. The Union fishhook, the bottom of it, is at Little Round Top. So we're going to do our first Texas walk. Let's do it. So this field behind me is called the Triangular Field. The 1st Texas is to this point, and then they're going to go on a charge, which means all you got full speed up this hill to dislodge the enemy. Take a second to just look at this field, wide open, uphill. They're obviously fighting with some vigor. The interesting part about this entire attack on the 2nd day was General Longstreet, who was, you could call him Robert E. Lee's right-hand man, wasn't sold on this attack. After the 1st day of fighting in the Mary Thompson house, Robert E. Lee had the map out and he pointed and he says, the enemy's here, we're going to fight them here. And General Longstreet was pretty much against it, saying that if the enemy's there, it's because he wants you to attack. And that's true. As we saw on the map, the high ground was completely taken by the Union, and now it's the job of the Confederates to dislodge them. So as members of the 1st Texas, we've taken artillery fire the entire battle march from Emmetsburg Road through the gap in the trees, through this open field. We're taking artillery fire from the Union Army that has the high ground at Little Round Top. Again, we're taking shell, and then as we get closer, we're going to take solid shot, and then immediately canister, as right behind us on this ridge that we're going to is Union artillery. Intense fighting goes on through this triangular field. The Texas troops, along with Other Texas regiments, Alabama troops are going to try to take the flank of the Union Army on Little Round Top. Heavy fighting goes through here, massive casualties from the south, but they are going to push through and they're going to take over Devil's Den, which is this outcropping of rocks behind us that we're going to go into. They're going to take over that and then use that as a launching point to Little Round Top, which at this point will still remain in Union hands. Throughout the second day of the battle, advance after advance is going to punish and pounce and bombard the Union left flank, but the Union holds strong. And this is going to happen throughout the entire fishhook that we looked at throughout the day. Behind me is the high ground that the 1st Texas was targeting. They wanted to take Little Round Top. However, a man by the name of Governor Warren, who you probably can't see his statue yet, but we're going to get there, comes up to Little Round Top with his binoculars and sees this movement of Confederate troops, and then he starts rushing Union regiments to this high ground to preserve it for the Union. Now, the Confederates are able to push through, push the Union back to that, and are going to take Devil's Den, which was strategically important to hold for a short period of time, but didn't ever get to the high ground. This is the far left flank of the Union Army, Army of the Potomac on July 2nd, 1863. And think about flanking motions as if you are a football player and you want to tackle somebody. You don't want to go head on, you want to get them at the side. If you're a wrestler, you don't want to attack somebody square on, you want to create an angle. The Confederate Army is trying to get a takedown. They're trying to get a tackle on the Army of the Potomac by attacking the flank. Now, at the early onset of July 2nd, this was not completely occupied by the Union, but seeing the force of Confederates coming this way, the 20th Maine arrives. They build breastworks. And I'm going to show you these breastworks, which are just not actually walls, but sections put up by rocks, logs, whatever they can find to give them some protection. Now, throughout the afternoon of July 2nd, Joshua Chamberlain and the 20th Maine fend off attacks from Confederate troops from Alabama, Texas, along this line. Now, as the day and the fighting wanes on, they run low on ammunition. This location, and if we're looking straight ahead, that's Big Round Top. This location is where the bayonet charge is going to take place. Low on ammunition, Joshua Chamberlain orders his men to attach bayonets. They charge down this hill, surprising the Alabama troops and successfully defending the Union left flank on July 2nd. So this is my dad's favorite part on the battlefield. This is the sniper's pit in Devil's Den. As you can see from behind this wall, you have a clear shot up to Little Round Top. Now, we're also going to learn a little lesson of historiography and reading for meaning and being able to decipher between historical research. A picture was taken after the battle of a Confederate soldier behind that rock wall with his rifle, right? And it's called the Confederate sharpshooter. However, a guy that published books, Frassinito, did before and after pictures of what the landscape of the battlefield was 1863 to now. And he found a picture of that same soldier about 40 yards behind right after the battle. So what we have here is a staged photo. The photographer, who was well known, was Alexander Gardner, and he actually drug the Confederate soldier up to this sniper pit to make a selling picture to make some cash, right? But this is my dad's favorite part on the battlefield, which is pretty cool. But now if we go down and look at the rest of Devil's Den, we're going to see this large outcropping of rocks. We'll take a couple strolls through it so we can see it and its relation to Little Round Top. Less Stroud style. Devil's Den got the nickname because there was a huge black snake that was here during the battle, and then hence the nickname Devil's Den, as you can see from all the rock outcroppings. But this was held by the Confederates. It had very little strategic meaning because the goal was to take the high ground of Little Round Top, and they were unsuccessful in doing it on the second day of the battle. Now at this vantage point, we have a good view of Little Round Top. And this small creek running here was rumored to run red with all the blood. We have the slaughter pen to the left of us, also the wheat field, which we're going to head over to. But our next objective is to take Little Round Top. So we're up to Little Round Top now, and we're going to hit on another one of my dad's favorite things, and he said to better tell these guys this one. So right here off to the side of Little Round Top, we see a memorial placard for where Strong Vincent was wounded. However, we got some more fake news, because that's not where he was wounded, but it took several years after to actually realize it. So as we're making our way up Little Round Top, we're going to find out where he actually got wounded. And it actually happened as two workers were up here having a few beers after work, picking moss off of the rock. And as they continued picking moss off this rock, they noticed some etchings underneath of it. And we're going to see what it says.
We'll get in trouble.
So off to the bottom side of Little Round Top is where the placard is. The etching is on this rock. It's starting to wear, but you can see Colonel Strong Vincent fell here July 2nd, 1863. So it's a pretty cool story. And it's right beside the 44th New York Monument, 44 foot tall, because that's the stuff they like to do at that point. So while we're standing at the far left of the Union line, if we scroll this way and we see the monument that kind of sticks out from everything else, this is the Pennsylvania Monument. It's the largest monument on the battlefield, and this actually shows the direct line of the Union fishhook. So this is the heart of the Union line out in front of us. That's going to be Cemetery Ridge, which wraps around to the high ground at Culp's Hill. We're on the high ground right now at Little Round Top, so we're at the left flank of the Union. The Confederate attack under Longstreet came from this direction. There's our Devil's Den. The Confederates were unsuccessful in moving the Union off of this high ground. Thankfully to this gentleman, Governor Warren, who once he got to this position, saw the Confederate movement and then started moving regiments to this spot. He gets wounded, but played a big role in preserving the Union left flank. So while the Union line is a solid defensive formation, for day 2, we are going to have a little glitch. General Daniel Sickles, who's a political general, and we're going to go down on the field and meet him in a little bit, actually moves his corps out, breaking the Union line. Now this is a mistake for a few reasons. First of all, it breaks the solid defensive position that they had. This breaking in the line, we're going to call it a salient, also offers multiple areas of attack. Now, while the defensive position allows for Union troops to try to fill this gap, it is risky, because if they are attacked and Sickles is taken out and his regiment falls back, it leaves a gap in the Union line. If the Confederates break into that gap before reinforcements get there, they'll be able to roll up the enemy on each side. Let's head down to that spot and see what it looks like. One thing you don't want to do is break up your formation, your line, and that's exactly what Daniel Sickles did to the Union on the second day of the battle. He created a salient, or a gap, in the line of the fishhook that stretched from Culp Hills to Little Round Top. Now, this is going to cause him some grief amongst his General Meade. General Meade, who arrives on day 2, comes up and tells Sickles to move several times, but by that point, Longstreet's advance already started and it was too late. Sickles is going to rise to fame as a political general, raises money to get a regiment in New York City, but he is going to be famous prior to the American Civil War, as Francis Scott Key's son has an affair with Sickles' wife, and Sickles runs him down in the middle of Washington, D.C. and shoots him dead with many witnesses. He will have the first ever successful plea of temporary insanity and get away with that murder. Now, Daniel Sickles is not going to be as lucky on the second day of the battle. He gets hit directly with an artillery shell from the Confederacy, ripping off his leg. It takes him out of action, but one of his captains actually says it was a bad day for General Sickles, but a good day for the Union Army, as Sickles was no longer able to perform his duties and removed from the field. This is the Bloody Wheatfield. Throughout the day of July 2nd, 1863, it changes hands between the Union and Confederates several times. One of the stories is that at the end of fighting on day 2, you could walk the entire length of this field without ever stepping on the ground. There were so many dead bodies. An officer for the Union, the regimental commander of the 5th New Hampshire, Ephraim Cross, typically rode into battle with a bandana. For this battle, he went with a black bandana, something that he didn't typically do, and he prophesied that this was going to be his last day of life, which he accurately prophesies, as he is hit by a sharpshooter in the guts. It exits out of his back and he dies about 7 hours later. But the Union is able to hold off several Confederate attacks over this field.
Yes, we'll rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We will rally from the hillside, we'll gather from the plain, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitor and up with the star. While we'll rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We are springing to the call for 300,000 more, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll fill the vacant ranks of our brothers gone before.